So we headed into another lockdown. What does that mean for the London property market? Well, we're going to be discussing that in today's video, so stay tuned. Hi everyone, I'm Arinzeh with Onyx Property Team in Keller Williams. I am a London-based property agent and I work with buyers and sellers, helping them find their perfect home and move on to the next chapter of their lives. Thanks so much for watching my YouTube channel. I put out weekly videos talking about the London property market as well as life, culture, living, neighborhoods, fabulous things to see and do in London, which is a city I absolutely adore. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about the London property market and kind of giving you the latest update. We're in the middle of a pandemic and we had a recent lockdown for a couple of months, but now we've got a pretty active London property market. So let's talk about what the last quarter of 2020 might look like and what's driven us to this point. So as I mentioned, the London property market was abruptly shut off in March as the coronavirus pandemic really kicked in. We were shut down for about a total of 2 months and then abruptly put back on or switched back on in May. Since then, we've seen a very active property market with buyers really kind of coming out and wanting to find the right home as there's been a lot of pent-up demand for being locked up for 2 months. And then the government also put in place a stamp duty holiday in effect until 31st of March 2021, which in effect gives most buyers a savings on their stamp duty of up to £15,000. As I represent both buyers and sellers, it's been really interesting to see how the current market dynamics have affected both sides. Buyers who've been locked up for 2 months, as I mentioned, were pretty eager to get out and find the right home, basically realizing, as most of us now, that we can work from home, and therefore the premium features for a home became garden space, outdoor space, extra rooms, but I would actually say maybe even less of the open plan. So in the past where open plans were really desirable so we could all interact together, I think we now realize we probably need some separate rooms so that one person can be working while another one's perhaps on a conference call. So having had those separate spaces and zones where we can work independently with privacy and then come together in the other areas of the home. So the flow and layout has become really important. Also, places and homes near good schools continue to be of high demand as well. One thing I have noticed is that on the sales side, our homes with gardens have shifted pretty quickly, but those who are, say, first-time buyers looking to get into that entry point have definitely pulled out of the market, and that's primarily driven by they're probably the most vulnerable to future layoffs, or now that the furlough scheme is being ended, are probably most vulnerable in the job prospect as well. And therefore we're also seeing that properties that don't have those gardens, that are kind of at the entry-level price point, are definitely sticking and having a lot more problems actually selling and finding suitable buyers. Also, those buyers are probably struggling to get mortgages if their work and job prospects might not be as strong in the future. So here are a few stats to give you a bit more context. Property data portal Landlord reports that new instructions in prime London almost doubled year on year for September. As seen in this graph, new instructions jumped 99% year on year in September after increasing 98% in August. You can see that compares to April and May, where we were shut down and there wasn't even any data produced for March. The number of properties going under offer was up 21% in September as compared to the same time last year, while completed transactions were down 18% from last year. Sales are taking much longer to complete as mortgage lenders, conveyors, and local authorities are working from home with less staff and trying to manage a larger pent-up backlog of transactions. For example, in the past, before the pandemic, it was taking about 2 weeks to get a mortgage offer, but now it's taking around 6 weeks. So I'm definitely advising anybody who wants to take advantage of the current stamp duty holiday, you really want to be out in the market today and really hopefully under offer really by November, giving yourself plenty of time, recognizing we're going to have the Christmas holidays, everything else, and probably 2 to 3 months to transact, to complete a transaction. So you don't want to bump up too close to that 31st of March deadline, especially as we near it. It's going to be harder to get surveys, harder to get valuations, harder to get mortgage offers. It's just going to take that much longer. So you want to give yourself enough time. So with less transactions and a fair amount of stock, prices are still slipping slightly, down 1.6% during the same period, which is attracting buyers to actually come back and seek significant bargains. So there's a bit of a pendulum switch here. So lack of demand has meant prices have come down, prices then start catching up because we are starting to have transactions. So we're actually seeing the market shifting pretty quickly here. So what was good or in effect a month ago might not be the dynamics that we're currently facing right now. This next graph is really great as it shows the distortion of transaction activity depending on price. For August and September this year compared to last year, all price bands except those over 5 million declined significantly. But data shows that between January and August this year, 1.13 billion was spent on super prime homes, those costing over 10 million and above. This is a jump of 16% compared to the same period in 2019. So again, you're seeing the difference in price bands and the result of transactions. But what makes the super prime activity so interesting is the fact that it's been done with far fewer international buyers. We all know that prime central London is heavily dependent on foreign buyers, which represent 40 to 50% of transactions. But we've actually seen a 40 to 50% decline in that group being active right now in the current property market. Speaking of international demand, what's also taken effect is that we're seeing fewer international students coming in due to COVID, travel restrictions, and ability to work remotely or to school remotely. This has resulted in significant reduction in demand in the rental sector, and that's meant that many Airbnb or short-let properties are glutting the long-term market, and therefore renters are definitely in a driving seat. What we're finding is that any property we're renting again, we're certainly getting less than we were getting in the past for that same property. So what does all this mean for future prospects of the London property market? Well, it means we really don't know. Many analysts predict that house prices will stay flat over the next 12 months due to coronavirus concerns as they continue to loom. In addition, Brexit uncertainty is still out there as the government hasn't been able to negotiate significant trade agreements or really give the public a sense of how Brexit will function on a practical basis. As a property agent, my job is to make sure I can advise my clients to look through all the noise of the market, but to factor in the dynamics and what the data is showing us, but also have frank conversations on their personal situations. At the end of the day, we are talking about property, which is housing and shelter. So there's always going to be a need. As I've always said, London has strong local market dynamics, including excellent schools, culture, rule of law, title transfer, and those factors that definitely need to be considered. And actually, when you compare the UK to other international or foreign countries, we're actually doing okay because other countries are having their own domestic issues as well. So if you're a seller, a landlord, or a buyer wanting to talk through or struggling to sell or wondering if this is the right time to buy, please do get in touch. I'm happy to have a complimentary conversation to discuss your needs and how this might be or not be the right time for you to do what you would like to do in this market. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out the other videos on my YouTube channel where I share great things about the London property market and living in this incredible city. So that's Arinzeh with Onyx Property Team and Keller Williams. Bye for now.